Is your 2026 plan still working, or are you following a plan that your business outgrew 3 months ago? July gives you something January couldn't: evidence. You've seen how clients are behaving, which parts of the market are moving, where your leads are coming from, and what your calendar actually feels like when the plan meets real life. A lot can change in 6 months. A lead source can slow down, a market can become more balanced, a team can grow faster than its systems, an agent can hit the production goal and still feel like the business is taking over every available hour. The mid-year reset is where you stop guessing and look at what the first half of the year has already taught you. Before we get into it, hit like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments what part of your business needs the most attention heading into the second half of the year. I'd work through 5 areas: production, pipeline, client experience, operating friction, and the environment supporting your growth. Give yourself 1 quiet hour. Bring the real numbers. Leave enough room to admit when something that made sense in January needs to change. Start with production. Pull the goal you wrote down at the beginning of the year and compare it with what has closed, what is pending, and what has a realistic chance of closing before December. Keep the categories honest. A friendly conversation isn't a pending client, and someone who may move next spring doesn't belong in this year's forecast. Then work backward from the gap. Say you're 8 closings behind pace. That number can feel heavy until you connect it to the way your business actually converts. How many qualified conversations usually create an appointment? How many appointments become signed clients? How long does one of those clients typically take to close? Once you know that, 8 closings becomes a weekly operating target instead of a vague source of pressure. Here's a prompt that can help with the math. I'm reviewing the first 6 months of my real estate business. My annual goal is goal. So far, I have closed, pending, and qualified opportunities. Ask me for my conversion rates, average sales cycle, active workload, and weekly capacity. Then calculate the activity required to close the remaining gap. Flag every assumption you make. Look at the answer alongside your calendar. A plan can be mathematically possible and still be operationally unrealistic. If the numbers require a schedule you can't sustain while serving current clients, the route needs another pass. That may mean improving conversion, changing the mix of business, adding support, or adjusting the goal with your eyes open. Production deserves a profitability review too. Gross volume can hide a lot. 2 agents may close the same amount and end up with completely different margins, workloads, and stress levels. Look at where the revenue came from, what each source cost, and how much time the work demanded. Ask yourself which parts of the business are producing a healthy return and which ones keep consuming the time you need somewhere else. A lead source that creates plenty of names and very few appointments may be draining more than the monthly invoice. A service you've been reluctant to pay for may free enough capacity to create another closing. Your goal may still be right. The route may need an adjustment. One agent may shift time back toward the database. A team may decide to protect listing inventory more aggressively. Someone else may cut a lead source that has produced activity without enough real conversations. July gives those decisions time to affect the year. Next, review your pipeline. Start wherever you currently keep track of people. That may be a CRM, a spreadsheet, a notebook, your email inbox, a calendar, or some combination of all 5. The tool is secondary for this first pass. What you need is a reliable view of who is active, what decision they're making, and when the next conversation should happen. A large list can create a false sense of security. You may have thousands of contacts and only a few dozen people with a clear next step. The mid-year review should bring those active relationships into focus. Sort each active person by the next decision in front of them. The screen can show examples here: financing, pricing, lease timing, job changes, school calendars, renovation plans, or family decisions. Your spoken question is simple: what needs to happen next, and when should you reconnect? A privacy-safe AI prompt can help organize the mess. I'm going to provide anonymized notes about active real estate opportunities. Organize them by likely timeline, unresolved client decision, next useful conversation, and follow-up date. Flag every contact with no clear next step. Do not write outreach yet. Start by showing me where the pipeline is vague. Once you can see the gaps, listen to the messages you've been sending. A buyer waiting on rates is carrying a different concern from a homeowner who wants to sell and feels nervous about finding the next house. A generic check-in makes both people feel forgotten. Relevant follow-up starts with the detail they already gave you. For agents tracking everything manually, this may be the point where a more structured system becomes worth exploring. The first step is defining what the system needs to do. Capture the relationship, preserve the context, assign a next action, and make follow-up easier to maintain. The Real Edge Network has a resource page that walks through CRM options and related systems agents can evaluate. That can be useful when the current setup lives across too many places or depends heavily on memory. The choice should fit the way the agent already works and the level of follow-up the business requires. The third review is client experience. Pick a handful of recent clients and walk through the process from their side. Look for the moments when they waited, felt uncertain, repeated a question, or needed you to explain the same step again. Emails, meeting notes, reviews, transaction notes, and recurring client questions can give you useful evidence. Remove private information first, then try this prompt. Review these anonymized client notes and identify moments of confusion, repeated questions, delayed communication, and unclear expectations. Group the patterns by stage of the client journey. Suggest one process improvement for each pattern. Say 3 sellers asked what to expect during the first 2 weeks on market. Build a clearer launch timeline. If buyers keep asking what they need before writing an offer, tighten that part of the consultation. Repeated questions point toward resources the business should already have. This is where a good resource library can recover a lot of time. The Real Edge Network provides presentation materials and client-facing resources that agents can adapt for real conversations. Starting from a well-built framework makes it easier to spend your preparation time on the client's situation instead of rebuilding the structure every time. Market communication belongs in this review too. The Real Edge Network's monthly market update materials include data-driven presentations and conversation prompts that agents can use as a starting point. The practical value shows up when an agent can turn market information into a relevant conversation for a seller, buyer, or past client without starting from a blank slide. Ask one question during this part of the reset. What are you explaining over and over again? That explanation may belong in a guide, a consultation visual, a short video, an email template, or a checklist. Build it once, keep it current, and leave more room for the questions that are unique to the person sitting across from you. The fourth review is operating friction. Think about the parts of the week that keep stealing time in small pieces. A form is hard to find. A listing graphic starts from scratch. Nobody knows where the latest presentation lives. A deadline gets checked in multiple places. Those interruptions add up quietly. Diagnose the problem before buying another tool. The screen can carry 4 possibilities: a missing standard, a missing template, unclear ownership, or work that belongs with someone else. Once the diagnosis is clear, the fix usually gets smaller. Use this prompt for the audit. I'm going to describe the recurring tasks and interruptions in my real estate business. Sort them into 4 groups: standardize, template, delegate, or eliminate. Ask how often each task happens, who currently owns it, how long it takes, and what happens when it's missed. Then recommend the first 3 changes based on time recovered and client impact. Document setup is a straightforward example. When buyer, offer, and listing materials are organized into clean template folders, the agent spends less time searching and has a clearer starting point. The Real Edge Network has a step-by-step resource for setting up those folders. Marketing can create the same kind of drag. The Real Edge Network's marketing help resource includes personalized materials such as announcement graphics, award recognition, bio support, and listing-related assets. An agent who already has the client information can move the request forward without rebuilding every design. The capacity you recover has somewhere to go. It can support more appointments, stronger client communication, better negotiation preparation, and a schedule that leaves enough mental space to make good decisions. Process work may feel small at the moment, and the effect shows up across the whole week. Transaction support may belong in the review as well. Look at the hours currently going into contract to close coordination, document chasing, vendor scheduling, and field tasks. Then compare that time with the value of support and the work only the agent can do. The Real Edge Network lists transaction coordination and field support resources that agents can evaluate based on their market and workload. The decision starts with the pressure point. Where is coordination consuming time, and what would become possible if that work had a clear owner? Delegation needs a clean handoff. Write down what the agent owns, what the support person owns, where updates live, and when an issue comes back to the agent. Clarity at the beginning prevents the handoff from turning into a second job to manage. The fifth review is the environment around your growth. Think about the conversations you're having each week. Are you around people who share current tactics, review real numbers, and help one another solve active business problems? How often are you carrying a decision alone until it becomes urgent? The first 6 months may have exposed a need for better market intelligence, cleaner systems, more reliable support, stronger presentation tools, tools, or access to another operator who has already worked through the same issue. Those needs are part of the business plan too. The Real Edge Network brings many of those practical pieces into one place, including market materials, presentations, marketing support, system guidance, document setup, and transaction resources. An agent can use the parts that match the current pressure point and leave the rest alone until the business calls for them. Team leaders may uncover a wider set of gaps. The team may need clearer onboarding, shared client materials, more consistent document systems, or an easier way to roll out new tools. Independent agents may see a need for support that still leaves their own identity and relationships intact. The right answer depends on what the first half of the year exposed. By the end of this review, you should have 5 decisions: 1 production adjustment, 1 pipeline cleanup, 1 client experience improvement, 1 source of friction to remove, and 1 change to the environment supporting your growth. Keep the reset small enough to operate. A long list of priorities usually becomes another document you stop opening. Choose the changes with the clearest effect on the second half of the year, assign an owner, set the first deadline, and schedule the next review before the current one ends. Here's one final prompt to pull it together. Act as a real estate business review partner, using my notes on production, pipeline, client experience, workflow, and support. Identify the 3 highest leverage adjustments for the second half of 2026. For each adjustment, give me the evidence, first action, owner, deadline, and number I should review in 30 days. Flag every recommendation based on an assumption. Your January plan doesn't need your loyalty. Your business needs your attention. Take what the first 6 months taught you, make the adjustment, and give the second half of the year a plan built from evidence. These are the kinds of conversations happening inside the Real Edge Network. Clearer numbers, practical resources, and people willing to work through the next business problem together. The resource only matters when it helps an agent make a better decision and carry it into the week. If this helped, hit like, subscribe, and share your biggest mid-year adjustment in the comments. You can also use the links below to explore the Real Edge Network resources we mentioned and see whether any of them line up with what your business needs next. See you on the next one.